move on to the next step, which is going to be to stitch the head and the halo. So we're going to do the head first. And I have 3781 on my needle, and we're going to make whipped backstitch. First we're going to make backstitch, and then we're going to whip those back stitches. So especially for the ornament size, you want to be making small stitches because this circle is not very large. So I'm going to make a small stitch here along the circle, and then I'm going to come up that same stitch length away on the circle, and then I go down at the end of the previous stitch, trying to use that same hole that we used for that previous stitch there, and then we just repeat, coming up a stitch length away along the circle and down into that same hole of the previous stitch. Finally, I have all of my back stitches done. Now we're going to whip the back stitches. Now we want to come from the outside of the circle into the center of the circle, because when we get over here next to the top of the angel's body, it would be very hard to get our needle under and out towards these stitches. So we want to go from the outside in. So my last stitch ended right here. So I'm going to come out under this stitch towards the center of the circle. I'll take that. Now I'm just going to slide my needle under every stitch from that same direction, working around. So outside to inside, and then again, outside to inside. Now, I've been working with 3 strands as the pattern calls for, but if you wanted a more delicate outline for the head, you could always choose to use 2 strands or even 1 strand if you wanted a really fine line. Feel free to adapt that to your own feelings as you go. Sorry for that wobble. Now we're going to go from the angel's body, and I'm going to kind of line my needle up with the stitch, slide it down, and then rotate it under. This makes it so I'm not going to catch any of these angel body stitches. Kind of line it up, rotate it under. And I'll just continue all the way around, whipping each stitch. All right, that was my last go under stitch. I came out under this one right here. So I'm gonna go up over to complete the circle and just slide my needle down under that stitch right here next to the stitch I just came out of. And I will anchor this off. Alrighty. Now we're going to stitch the halo. Like I said, we've got 3 strands of 783 on our needle, and we're going to be making chain stitch. So I'm going to start here at the very bottom edge of this halo circle. I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to go down in the same hole or very close to it. Now I'm leaving a loop on the top. And you can hold the loop over this way, or you can hold it out of the way. Doesn't really matter. We're going to make, sorry, I'm fighting with my hoop stand a little bit right here. Okay, we're going to come up along the line of the halo, 1 stitch length away. Now you need to have fairly short stitches, especially on the ornament size, to make this look rounded. But keep in mind that the shorter your stitch length is for chain stitch, the fatter your chains will look. All right, so we pulled up through that chain stitch in the direction we're stitching out this way. Now we're gonna go down right where our thread is coming up. That's inside the chain. And then we're gonna repeat. I'm once again gonna come up on the line of the halo through our loop we've pulled up here. And now I'm pulling in the direction we're stitching once my thread is no longer caught, until this chain lays snug on the fabric. And then we're going to repeat. Going down where our thread is coming up inside the chain, coming up our stitch length along the halo line, go through the loop, pull the direction we are stitching. Now to finish this last stitch, I'm going to come up here at the end of my line through the loop, and then I'm going to go down on the outside of this loop and probably a little bit under the body. So you see that I'm on the outside of the loop. So we're making just a teeny tiny little stitch here at the top of the chain to hold it in place. And it also brings our thread to the back of our hoop so that we are ready to anchor and move on to the next part of our stitching, which today is going to be working on the wings. I have traded to 2 strands of 3/8-6/6, and we're going to start working on the wings. We're going to make the vertical stitches first. So I'm going to come up either at the top or the bottom of, nope, I'm going to come up at the bottom of this line right here. See if I can get actually just on it and not through, there we go, not through the angel. And I'm going to come up to the top of the line and go down. Now we're going to alternate directions because these stitches are nice and far apart after I fix this knot. So I'm going to come up now at the top of the line instead of the bottom. And then I'm just going to take my line. I'm going to pull this stitch all the way down to the bottom of my little guide mark here. Except that does not feel straight. That's why I can see it better on the other side. I stitched over it. I have a little guide mark right there. So in retrospect, it would probably be better for me to have traced this line fully and this line fully and then just used guide marks for the rest of them. Don't worry so much about your lines being perfectly straight. It's all going to work out in the end. Second, we want these stitches to lie flat on the fabric. We also don't want to be pulling so hard that our fabric begins to bunch, or we start to make large holes where our needle has went through the fabric. So just think about helping the thread stay tight to the fabric and no tighter. And now we're going to go back the other direction, and I'm going to add a stitch in between each of these stitches. And I'm going to vary the length of where the stitches end so that we start to kind of get this feathery, if you will, look along the bottom. Now I'm going to add 1 stitch to the right here, kind of following this point here. It's going to be a little stitch, and it's just going to help round out the look of the wing. So I'm coming up in the middle of these 2 stitches. I can always check with my needle if I feel like I'm having a hard time seeing where the middle is. All of these stitches are going to be shorter than our first stitches. I don't want anything poking out farther past those original guides. How short that is, though, is up to you. Kind of stitching with your heart at this point. These last 2 spaces here between the body and the wing, you're going to make your middle stitch here go from all the way at the top to all the way down to the body. These ones we're envisioning are a full length spot, so they don't stop before we run into the body. Now I'm going to repeat that with 3, 8, 6, 6 on the other side. Now I have a single strand of 3, 7, 8, 2, and we're going to be adding some lines in between the spaces that we have, in between the stitches that we already have. Now I'm not going to put a stitch in every space. We're going to pick and choose the ones we feel like need to have stitches. So what I will do is I gotta concentrate to get that one where I want it to be, apparently. Is I'm gonna put no more than 2 stitches next to each other, if you will. So I left that space blank so I can stitch here. This space feels a little tighter to me than this space, and I want one in this long space. So I'm going to jump over to this long space. And again, I'm not making any stitches longer than my original set that I traced on here. Down to there. And then I'm going to make one on the other side of this line. And I'm inside my original stitches. Longer than this one, but that's okay, because it's not a stitch I traced. Go all the way up to the top. So this time I have 2 next to each other, so I'm not going to put one in this space. I'm going to skip over to the next space. So no more than 2 stitches or 2 spaces next to each other filled. For this ornament size, I feel like I ended up doing a lot more every other than 2 close together, whereas on the larger version, you can see that I have one here, open space, one here, open space, just one open space, just one open space, 2 together, open space. So I filled in a little bit more on the larger one than I'm feeling like I need for this tiny ornament. But the choice is up to you. You've got enough floss that you could put one in between all of them if you want. You can leave it more open like I chose to. Either way, fill in the spaces with this darker color. And then I'm going to jump over to this side, finish these ones off, and then we'll meet back together to finish the top edge of the wing. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to use 2 strands again of 3, 8, 6, 6, and we're going to make a line of stem stitch along the top of the wing here and then over to the other side. You could choose to do this from the body out if you wanted, but given the size of this little ornament one, I think I'm just going to go straight across and save myself having to anchor thread more than one time. So I'm going to come up right at the end of this stitch, or if I was coming from the middle out, I'd be looking to end right at the top of this last stitch that is the edge of the wing. And then I'm going to make a decent sized stitch along our line. And then I'm going to be pulling this to the outside. We're going to leave a loop, and I'm going to pull it towards the outside out of your way. Then I'm going to come up in between, in the middle of this space, again along the line, and pull until my thread sits snug on the fabric. Then I again pull the loop the same way I did the first time. So I went to the outside, so I'm going to the outside again. Now I'm making the same stitch length from the thread to my needle, or you could think of it as a half stitch length from the end of your line, whatever is mentally easier to visualize. And then I'm going to come up close to the end of that previous stitch in the middle of my loop and pull until my my stitch lays close to the fabric. And then I just repeat all the way across. And as we get close to the halo here, we're just going to make sure that we go underneath the halo, kind of staying right close to it and right into the body. All right, this is my last-ish stitch right here into the body. And you can see that my needle is right next to the body rather than sliding under a little bit, because I'm going to come back up through the middle of this loop, just like I have for all my other stem stitches. Sorry for that big wobble there. And I'm going to take this last half stitch in under the body. So this line of stitching just disappears right into there, but maintains the beautiful twisted texture that it has. So I'll just repeat this on the other half, and then we will be done. And there you have it. The angel is done. I took that same half stitch here at the end so you can continue to see the braided woven texture all the way to the end. And we have an angel all finished. All that's left to do is just finish the back of the hoop, and it is ready to be hung or displayed and be part of your Christmas decor. Thanks for stitching along with me.